Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me on the show today, Debbie G and Neo Positivity. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. It's a good day because it's a 2-day in a row for me with Neo and Debbie G after hearing Debbie's powerful story yesterday. I think today's going to be a little bit lighthearted compared to yesterday. But yesterday was good. Don't get me wrong. Yesterday was really powerful in many, many ways.
What if I got you right?
It was. Well, that it was and it is. What else can I say? Anyway, we do have a guest joining us today. His name is Wilk Wilkinson. He is the owner and the podcaster of Derate the Hate. And I love the name. I'm curious to know, where did you decide to do this? Where did this idea come from? Well, first of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. But where does this idea come from?
Well, thank you very much, Walt. It's an honor to be here. Very grateful for the invite. And so Derate, I don't know if you guys are familiar with trucks too much, but derate made like in the trucking industry means to shut down or slow down something. So if a truck is about to implode, the engine will derate. And so I kind of took that, and then I saw so much hate going on in the world today, so much negativity, so many things in our country are fractured today. So I figured I thought it was a great play on words, Derate the Hate, and I put it together and turned it into a podcast.
That's cool. All right. I like that. And I'm curious also to know, how has it been received? How do people feel about it?
Pretty decent. I get a lot of good response. I think there's a hunger out there for people who are promoting civility instead of all the toxicity. All the toxicity is what seems to go viral, which I think is unfortunate. But there's few of us out there that are working hard to turn that around. And so yeah, the people who dig it really dig it, and we just got to try and get it in front of as many people as possible.
So I've got to top it. Okay, so can I please? So all right, look, I love this. Derate the Hate. That's such a cool. It's got such a flow to it. Mm-hmm. So are you working with nonviolent organizations and things like that at this point as well? Is that what you would consider your organization as well? I think I have two questions there.
Yeah, so I do. The only organization that I am probably officially affiliated with would be Braver Angels. They're an organization that does a lot of work all over our country, trying to bridge that political divide and try and tame down that toxicity. That's the only one that I'm probably officially affiliated with. I've done interviews with several people in different organizations that are trying to stamp out racism, stamp out anti-Semitism, things like that. But as far as official affiliations, not yet. I'll just put it that way. Not yet, Debbie.
Well, I think that's great. First off, nonviolent movements are the way that a lot of the changes came forward in this world, as we all know. Martin Luther King was one of the greatest nonviolent movers, shakers in this entire world. Period. That's a great example of a nonviolent, movement. But the thing is that it's really great because somebody always has to speak. But what I'm so curious about is Neo sitting here, because Neo, you've got a couple different avenues to come at it from here, with being a cop and with having been a cop, and also just being who you are. And I know that you've got some. Yeah, go. I'm just.
You know what? I do. I'm curious. I'll get into the good stuff, but first I have to ask, where have you experienced? Well, out of all the countries you've been in, where have you experienced the most hate? Was it America or somewhere else?
Probably on the internet ecosystem.
Well, that's just Earth. Now you're saying mankind,
right?
So physically.
I'll be honest with you. I haven't been in a lot of countries. So, the two countries that come to mind, for me would be, Jamaica and Mexico.
Okay.
Saw some very interesting things as far as different thing, kind of class warfare kind of things down there. But the primary thing that I see here in the United States is, well, I don't know. This may not be a popular thing to say, but it is faux senses of, and when I say faux, FAUX or whatever, faux senses of hate, and people trying to exacerbate situations that may not be as big as one would have you believe in order to keep us divided. That's my big thing, is to not allow different power structures to keep us divided because they do it for power. Mm-hmm. So I see that more than real instances of hate, I guess, if that makes any sense.
I love that, because I think that as people, we are a community and we want to work together. We want to love each other because it feels better, and we just so happen to build better when we do. But then, like you said, when you've got figures or whatever that are in control that don't want us having that unity, they might do things to keep us apart. And it only takes a small fuse.
It happens every day.
A small spark to get one person going, then a whole community's going. And with the internet being what it is, now you got the whole world going. And it's
exactly
a whole
right.
other issue.
That's exactly right. I talk about it all the time, man.
Well, I'm curious. So, how much hate did you see on the streets?
Not as much as you would think.
That's what I'm just curious about that. Yeah.
I mean, everybody hated the cops. But so I was just numb to that, because, I hated the cops growing up. My dad was a cop. My whole family was a cop, but I didn't want to get pulled over and have to pay a $250 ticket. So there's a part of me that hated the cops. Plus, I was always getting harassed by cops. So I was just numb to that. By the time, like a lot of the shootings, by the time I got there, the person was dead already. So I didn't see the hate between them, but you could feel what just happened. But most of the time when you arrive on a scene and there's 12 black males on a corner with blue jeans and white T-shirts on, they all love each other. They're all friends, and they all scatter when you get there. And you just, the one with the drugs or the guns you chase. So I don't say I haven't seen as much hate as you would think in the streets. Now, between administration, that's another story. I always said the worst place to be in Camden City was the police administration building. That's where everyone avoids, because that's where a lot can happen. If you're looked at wrong, if you're in the wrong place and they don't think you're supposed to be there, why aren't you in the streets? They're looking to burn you and screw you and all this other stuff. So that's where my thing came from. I don't think the community hated us because they needed us, and a lot of the drug dealers depended on us, because who's getting robbed the most in Camden? Drug dealers getting robbed by other drug dealers. So when they see us driving through their corner every 30 minutes or so, that's a sense of security for them. They're going to have to run if I start chasing them, but I'm keeping them protected from getting shot or whatever. So yeah, it wasn't as much hate as you might think.
I was just curious. Yeah. I am absolutely wondering what put this drive in you, Wilk? What put this drive in you to really want to be a voice for us to not be a divided culture?
Well, that's a great question, and that's it's actually it's funny, because I used to be more of a toxic voice than I was a voice for unity, and not that I was actually going out there looking to spread toxicity or whatever. It was just, I still have a lot of the same opinions that I had before. I've certainly never been a racist or an anti-Semitist or this ist or that ist, though I have been accused of it more times than I can possibly imagine. The thing is the way that I went about trying to get my point across was very different. And not to lie, but I was a very miserable and unhappy person for much of my life. So it was about 3 years ago when I started the Derate the Hate podcast, that I also had a T-shirt company. I had this T-shirt company that was called Failed Understanding Apparel. It basically pointed out the misinterpretations that people had on a lot of certain things having to do with conservatism and things like that. But it was also a play on words because it was FU apparel. And I used to get a lot of hate mail for my slogans, for my shirts and stuff like that. And I thought, you know what? How do I play on this hate mail? So I was going to start like a haters happy hour. And I thought about it and I'm like, it accomplishes nothing. It really doesn't accomplish anything going out there and giving more airtime to all these toxic voices online. So I quickly changed direction. I mean, it was a true S curve in what I was doing with the D-Rate the 8 podcast. And then, you know, the more I got to doing it, as I started like spreading more positivity and using the different tools that I had learned to get out of my own miserable shell and get out of my own life misery, it just started growing on itself. I mean, I started becoming more positive, started enjoying more things about my life. I started helping other people with their mindset, and it was like a snowball rolling down a hill as it got started. And this is for me personally. This isn't necessarily including my audience, obviously, which has grown over the past 3 years and the influence that I've built up over the past 3 years. But just what it did for me internally, you know, building on that positivity was just so much better.
I love the fact that you mentioned fear and misery as what was driving you previously, because I think I don't care what the political viewpoint is. I think that some combination of those two words are what's involved with everybody who's pushing some kind of divide issue in some way. They're really expressing how they're feeling inside. Mm-hmm. And I find that to be fascinating, because that means at the bottom line, when all is said and done, the whole divide thing really has nothing to do with the political issues themselves. It has to do with the people and how the people feel about themselves.
A lot of times it does. Yeah, a lot of times it does. It's just a lot of times they're about their own internal insecurities and how they feel and how they want to do things and so many people, what it comes down to it, unfortunately, it's a lot about narcissism. They think because I want it this way, I'm going to make everybody else do it this way, and they don't. Then they quit listening to each other, because they say this is how I feel, and you got to take my feelings into account. Now I tune out that other person, and nothing gets accomplished.
Yeah. I have a question, and I would like everyone's answer on this. In the world, the biggest issue you can think of to, I guess, fix or solve as far as that division, you know, what would it be, and how would you go about canceling it if you could?
I'll go first on that one, because this is one that I wrestled with for years. Wilk, my background is I was a political science major in school, and I was very much politically involved for many years. My perspective was libertarian. And after many years of studying myself, the subject, the populace, the political culture, and so forth, it took me a long time to get to the point where I did, but I finally got to the point where I recognized that politics doesn't solve anything. As much as I would like it to, it really is not even capable of solving anything.
Wait a minute. Did you finish your degree?
I did.
Oh my God.
I did. Yeah.
And then learned it meant nothing.
It meant nothing at all. But by the way, that was not an easy concept to grasp and to absorb. Like, I had wasted all that time. Well, I had not wasted it, but that was the initial impression. Like, oh my God, I wasted my time on this thing that's useless. Which I found out actually very shortly after graduation.
That's how most college students come out of college, by the way.
But that's absolutely true. You're not going to get an argument out of me.
Listen. I want to know, what are you going to do? What are you going to implement to create the change that needs to be changed? What are you going to do? I want to know. Political science major.
That's why I had to give you that preface, so you'd understand where the answer comes from.
I'm waiting.
Because the answer is, I'm not going to try to influence the populace as a whole. I'm going to try to influence myself. I'm going to work on myself. That's been my goal ever since I left that world behind. It's been my goal since I started doing this podcast. And the more that I do that, interesting things happen. I influence other people. I don't have to talk to them politically. I don't have to argue with them. I don't have to say anything. They don't even have to know anything about what my political beliefs were. And yet I still end up influencing them. Mm-hmm. So it's an entirely different mindset. It's not a mindset of I need to join a movement. I need to step up and stand up and be counted. No, I need to work on myself. And when I do, wonderful things happen. So that's my answer.
Nice. Look inside, baby. Look inside.
It almost doesn't even answer the question, so I apologize for that. But
I was sitting here and I got to tell you, Walt, I'm in alignment with that. I have one thing one thing, 2, 3 maybe.
Oh, we got time. Do 4 or 5. It's okay.
Really, I don't have a lot because what you just said is really it. It's internal, but it's be the 100th monkey for God's sake. You don't know if you are social change 2.0. Be that you seek. As simple as that. And if you are that you seek, what you are seeking will seek you. And then in turn, you're going to be seeing that mirror of that acceptance and appreciation and the badass that you are. And each one of us have the opportunity to show up every single day and be that reflection to another. So if we really want to see social change 2.0, be the 100th monkey. And again, be that you're seeking. And if you can do that, I mean, it's a big challenge too. Mm-hmm. Don't tell Joe I said that. Don't. Swear to God, don't you, he's not even watching this right now. Shh. It's a secret.
Not sure, but it might be recorded. But
yeah.
So anyways, that's fantastic, Debbie and Walt. You are absolutely right. Politics, in many ways, is painful because in most cases, I think it is useless. It's more damaging than it is good. But Debbie makes an incredible point, and it's one that I make in every single episode of the Derate the Hate podcast. Personal accountability. And everything starts with us as individuals. Everything starts with us as individuals. You know, going to Neo's question, the first thing or the biggest thing that I would like to stamp out in the world today, because all the problems, most of the world's problems stem from it, is ignorance, right? Some people are stupid. They're just born that way, but they must remain ignorant and they must choose to remain ignorant. Every one of us as individuals has a choice to make. Do we want to learn and make the world better? Do we want to learn and make ourselves better? Because as I say all the time, it all starts with us. If we choose to make the world a better place, we have to choose to make us better first. Once we choose to make us better, we are that example that Walt was talking about, that Debbie was talking about. And ignorance is the leading problem with all of us being miserable. All bad things generally stem from ignorance. You know, not understanding somebody of a different race. It's because we don't understand them. Ignorance leads to fear. Fear leads to hate. Hate leads to anger, and anger leads to violence.
There's an interesting aspect to that word too, ignorance. Most people, when they think of ignorance, and they think, okay, what's the pivot of ignorance? Well, it's education. But if you really look at the word ignorance, the first part of the word ignorance is ignore. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which really isn't the way we normally think about it. But that's really what it is. Ignorance is I'm ignoring that. And I'm not going to pay any attention to that thing. I don't want to know. I that's not part of me. No, go away. And that's the real problem right there. Just like, I'm not going to acknowledge that there's that thing over there. I'm just not going to say it's not even there. And I'm not going to give it credit. I'm not going to applaud it. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to ignore it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but I got to get curious about this word ignorance. And the reason I have to get curious about this is that I have a lot of compassion for those that don't know what they don't know. And there seems to be, I don't know, I've been ignorant in my life because I didn't know something I didn't know.
But that, I'm going to jump in and key in on what Walt said. Ignoring it.
ignoring it, but
it's like
that's
eating,
not what ignorance means. To not have lack, it means to have lack of knowledge, doesn't it?
but think about it like this.
Okay.
Let's say we all want to eat healthier so we can live better lives and live a little bit longer. But making the choice to go get the knowledge, ignoring the websites and the information out there about what we should and shouldn't eat, and electrolytes and stuff like that. Choosing to be lazy and just look it up tomorrow, and then look it up tomorrow, and I'll work on it tomorrow. That is a choice. So it is a form of ignoring. But I do totally understand if you live in a village in the Amazon and you don't even know what a book is because you've never seen one. That is another level of, because you're not ignoring the information at that point. You don't know it exists at that point. And, there's lots of things as humans that we still don't know exist.
Well,
so I get you on both levels.
I love all of it. I love all of it. So, but then Wilk said something right afterwards that I thought that's for me felt stronger and truer. And that was fear. Fear is the opposite of love. And if one thing we could change in this world, if it were fear, if it were the fear that we all have to be the divine being that we are, the fear that we all have of stepping out into our true divinity and being that we are here to be, we're all scared shitless because of what we've been taught. The ignorance there, I have to toy with the word, but I love the idea that you're also bringing up another part of that is, so that's a good question. I'm going to ask everybody, are you ignoring the change that you could be in order to be a change in the world? So I'm curious.
And take it a step further too. Are you ignoring what the other side that you don't really like so much is standing for and believing in and feeling for? Is there some way that you can honor that even though you don't agree with them?
I'm going to go first with this one. I'm not ignoring it. I may be putting it off till tomorrow to learn some of the things. No, because there's so many things about the law of attraction and so many books. Like I have a list of books that Debbie gave me that I still want to get into, and I keep putting it off. And I know it could help me grow. I got a lot of great speeches coming up that a lot of stuff from those books needs to be in those speeches for me to give my best performance. So there's a part of being busy or just being lazy and putting stuff off. Life comes at everybody at a million different ways, a million miles a minute for all 46 billion of us. So, it's all the above, It's a bunch of different reasons.
Yeah. Let me just say this about all that, because those were some incredible points too. But when I think about ignorance, I think about people's misperception of whatever it is they seem to hate, right?
That too.
When I say, I hate getting up early in the morning, it's not because I don't know what it's like to get up in the morning. So that's a different kind of hate, right? I mean, that's not the kind of hate that we're talking about. But like, if I said, I don't know, if I said I hated you, Neil, I don't know anything about Neil. Obviously I don't, and please don't fall off your chair because there's really nothing there. Almost
knocked me on my damn chair.
But no. So
hey, Dr. Evil has a button.
But here's the thing about that is if I know nothing about you, but I just decide based on some misconception of who I think you are, that misconception is purely out of ignorance because I know nothing about you. That is what happens in most cases when it comes to the racial divide or the ethnic divide between people of here in the States and some other country. It's like, okay, have you been there? Have you spent a lot of time with people? Let's say if somebody says, I hate Indian people. I can't stand people from India. Okay, have you been there? Have you spent a lot of time with them? Have you spent a lot of time with more than one of them? That kind of thing, that kind of mentality is what leads to hate groups, right? It's because they didn't spend any time together. They didn't get to know anything. When I talk about ignorance leads to fear, fear leads to hate, hate leads to anger, anger leads to violence. I didn't come up with that. That was Daryl Davis, a good friend of mine, Daryl Davis, who's done incredible work bridging the divide between say people of color and neo-Nazis, or people of color and the Ku Klux Klan. He's been instrumental in leading hundreds of people out of those hate movements. How did he do it? He walked in and said, "Hi, let's sit down and have a conversation." And when they did, when they actually did have that conversation, that one-on-one, and said, that breaks down that wall of ignorance. You start to chip away at the nonsense, that misconception that these hate groups have for, people of color or people of Jewish descent, things like that, right? And then they start to realize, what the hell was I doing? I don't even know why I hated these people that I didn't know, because they didn't know anything about them. But when they start to break down that ignorance barrier, start breaking down the ignorance, the fear comes along with it. Once the fear goes away, the hate goes away.
This is true.
So it's incredible what a conversation will do. It's incredible what conversations do for civility. Asking questions, eliminate the ignorance. The ignorance goes away. Everything goes away with it.
I want to share something, and it happened a lot in the police department. Obviously, I was in Kansas City. It was the most dangerous city in America. So you can imagine some of the appearances that people had. And, they got resting bitch face, stuff like that. And so I've had so many conversations with dudes that just look like terrible human beings. I'm sorry. Like you look like you just beat somebody up, raped them, and took all their stuff. Like they just got that look. And then you have a conversation with them, and then there's part of you that's like, he's human. Like it just hit. Wow, right? He's just a normal, average. He just looks like that, because of life. What's life done to him? But that's opened my eyes so much to exactly that point. And then to piggyback on top of that, moving to Florida and getting the exact opposite, seeing a level of niceness that I had never experienced before on a massive level. It wasn't like you had one neighbor in the neighborhood that was nice. Everybody just acts like this down here. This is just their way of being.
I freaking love Florida. Yeah.
It's insane. And California is the same way. So being open or the amount of eye opening that happens in one conversation is just amazing when you realize there's just another person like me.
Oh, Mr. Carter.
Yeah, not that thing that I had in my mind. What's it?
Oh. Listen, I'll educate you later, Neo, on that. Listen. Okay. You guys just make my happy button go, because here's why. Marshall Rosenberg, nonviolent communication. It's a conversation. And the conversation that he was asked to have over in, I want to say somewhere in Syria, I believe, and I could be wrong. So if I butcher it, oh well, but you're going to get the point. Is this. There was so much hate going on back and forth between, he was getting called a spick and a Jew and a this and a that. He's been asked to speak over here where he's hated. Okay. He's Caucasian. He's not being loved on here. He's over there to give a speech and to inspire and all these other things. So they're going to go take him away. They're going to go take the other guy away. The haggler, or whatever, heckler, they're called. The heckler. And he goes, stop. No. Let him stay. In fact, bring him up here. This is a true story. You guys need to look this up. Brings him up to Marshall Rosenberg. And Marshall Rosenberg starts asking him questions of curiosity. Why do you feel, what's going on for you? He made this man feel heard and seen. He showed him empathy. Mm-hmm. I imagine that really is hard for you to have this experience. You don't have food for your family. You don't have these things going on. You feel like you've been left alone. This man went on to be, by the way, the heckler went on to be one of Marshall Rosenberg's greatest freaking speakers out there, speaking the word of nonviolent communication and empathetic beingness and all of these great things. So I love that because it's the truth. And the emotional intelligence level that we're talking about is truly that, just simply being empathetic, using our heart. So absolutely having a conversation. And the other thing I got to say is California. I don't know if it's about California or not, but I was born and raised there. And I've always had this idea that if you get cut and you bleed red, you're good. If it's green, run. Shit. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Y'all, listen, I was Southern California I'm brought up in. I want you to, I'll just picture this now. My dad's Garcia, so he's been my dad since I was 2. So I'm white as can be, but nobody can figure that shit out because her name's Debbie Garcia. What the hell, right? I'm going to school, seriously, and everybody's really curious, like, how is this possible? She's got blue eyes and darker hair. My hair was darker then. Go figure. All of this, right? They couldn't figure it out. Then I go to Gary High School. I walk off of the bus from Phillips Ranch and I literally get, oh, there's a rich white bitch. And I'm like, oh, I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm getting my ass beat because I can't even fight. Still to this day, I've never been in a physical fight.
That's good.
But I wound up just being friends with everybody because it didn't matter to me. I was friends with everybody. They all had their little cliquey groups and I was in everybody's group. Period. And I'm back in my day, because I'm 55, we learned to freak to Midnight Star. Hello, freakazoids, robots, please report to the dance floor. I was like, back in the original days, we didn't, but there was something beautiful about the way I was experiencing life because I didn't experience it with these glasses that everybody, that hate seems to have. And I'm really grateful for that. But I will tell you that it's really about our individual. It's just about being who that you need to truly be. I'm just dying here though, because the conversation is all there is to it. We're all just big old babies waiting to be heard and seen in some way. Doesn't matter what color skin you freaking have or religion you are or where the hell you came from. You all came out of a coochie coo somewhere.
I love that.
Yes, I just said that. I mean, shit, for real? We're all just, I mean.
Wilk is getting the full Debbie G effect today. You realize that.
I was going to say at one point in every episode, our guest looks like Wilk just looked. And that's when I say, welcome to Fridays.
Yeah. You know what? It's all good because she's absolutely right. We all just want to be heard. We all, with very rare exceptions, we all put our pants on one leg at a time. We all wake up in the morning. We all want to be, but we want to have security. We want to have somebody who loves us. We want to have food in our belly. We really want to be heard when it comes to other people. So when it comes to people that don't want to listen to us, that don't want to treat us like human beings, that want to act like we're monsters because we have a different opinion than they do, or a different mindset than they do, that's where the hate comes from. That's where the hate comes from, because at that point, if you're not going to listen to what I have to say, if you're not going to take my humanity into account when you try to make decisions about who I am or how I should live my life, that's where the hate comes from, right? So what we need to do is just keep on having conversations, try to stamp out that ignorance. One of the things I mentioned my friend Daryl Davis here a few minutes ago. And I also will talk about my friend Jeff Scoop. Jeff Scoop used to be the head of the largest American Nazi party in our country, right? He led it for several years, a couple decades, in fact, I believe. Daryl Davis played an instrumental role in getting Jeff Scoop out of the American Nazi Party, the National Socialists of America. He sat down with Jeff and had a conversation. Those two right now are as close as any two people would ever be. Daryl Davis, black man who, like I said, has been instrumental in getting hundreds of people out of the American Nazi movement, the Ku Klux Klan, things like that, has gotten Jeff Scoop to change his mindset or played a part in it. Obviously, he didn't make it happen, but he played a part in that. Jeff Scoop now speaks all over the world about civility. Beyond Barriers, USA.org is his website. He does incredible work. He's a fellow at the Simon Wiesenthal Center, helping people stamp out anti-Semitism now. Used to head the American Nazi Party. Who would have thought such a thing could happen? You know how it happens? It starts with a conversation.
Yeah.
It starts with a conversation.
The conversation includes curiosity, too, because that's the other term that I keep hearing here. Being curious about somebody instead of judgmental.
Curiosity will save your ass. And in fact, the willingness to be curious what's real for another human being is taking empathy to a level that actually incites change. Mm-hmm. That's my personal thought, but it's not just my personal thought. This is actually my major, is communication. And these are things we study. But it is about that conversation. It is it's always about the person's voice, and our voice being, are you willing to use your voice in a nonviolent way to initiate change, to just be the change? And it's a really hard question, because I've been asked this, I mean, when I'm doing interviews with some of the people that I've interviewed, and you guys know this from the UN, they're willing to step up and stand. I mean, Jonathan Granoff is willing to step up and really put himself out there now to initiate and be the voice of change. I know who I know who Daryl Davis is. Astonishing, that incredible human being, but he's also big on nonviolent movements. And see, we've had a lot of this. Rosa Parks did some of the major changes in the world that we've seen, and for women, for Black women to boot, but for all women, because all women face a form of racism that if you want to call it that, I suppose, a form of a divide as a woman. And this is something that women have been dealing with for years, and we choose now to stand up and use our voice and be that. We're not doing it violently, but really, I think acceptance is key here. The acceptance factor, because there's a lot of judgment from a lot of places. But I got a real question. What if you're not agreed with? What if we just let somebody else be right about their stupid shit? I'm just curious. There are times when I'm just like, dude, you're all right. Maybe in your world, you're right, and I'm good with that. Maybe in their reality, which we can't actually see all of, who knows? But I'm curious, what would happen if we let them be and have a larger following of those that are in alignment, instead of fighting against the ones that are just not ready to hear.
I got a Rosa Parks story that will partly answer that question.
Oh, please do.
You mentioned Rosa Parks, so that's what brought it to my mind. I literally just had this conversation with my sister earlier this week. I mean, typical law of attraction, right? Here we are, just booming out on this topic that we were talking about with my sister a few days ago. Many years ago, my sister lived in Washington, D.C., and she was part of a group that had a number of special guests come in. One of those guests that came in was Rosa Parks at the very end of her life. Shit. And they got to hear her talk. They got to hear her story and so forth. And then afterward, I guess she had a book or something. I don't remember what, but, she was meeting and greeting with the people who were there. And my sister got in line, to meet her. And when she got a chance to talk to her, she said, I love what you've been doing. And I love the history of the story and so forth. But there's something I'm really, really curious about. She said, what made you sit down that day? And Rosa started to give her the usual spiel. She says, no, I mean, that day, what was it that day? Can you remember what happened
what was it that day on that bus? Yeah.
On that bus that made you want to do that. And she said, well, honestly, I just bought a new pair of shoes and my feet hurt.
My feet hurt, yeah. Yeah.
But I've had it. I am sitting down.
I'm sitting down.
I had to write this down real quick because you guys are all spitting out something. I got 4 things I want to say. About the Rosa Parks thing, you know how many fights I have seen between all races to sit in the back of the bus? Like, they fight for that in high school.
I don't even understand. That's all they want to sit is the back of the bus. Who wants to sit in the front? All the cool kids sitting down.
It's just stupid. As far as Wilk, what you were saying about earlier about the people sitting down of different, you got a Nazi and a black dude. It's crazy how just being cool changes someone's perspective. Like, damn, you really cool. And now you change their perspective about the whole race. I've seen that happen a lot in my day. The third thing was one of my greatest abilities. One of the things I'm so happy I've become very good at recognizing before it gets out of hand is when you're having that conversation with somebody and they're stuck on their point and their point is wrong. Cause you're like, dude, that's a little racist. I know your parents raised you that way, but it is what it is. Walking away, not walking away mid conversation, but just being like, all right, I'm not going to fight with you on it. You know, it's like Debbie said, I'm not going to fight you on it. You go ahead and do your thing. Obviously, I'm not going to change your mind. Obviously, I'm not going to change your mind. I'm not going to give myself anxiety trying to. That is one of my biggest and greatest skills, and I recognize it all the time. As soon as I see their rebuttal, I'm like, oh, that's where this is going. I just be quiet until the conversation fizzles out, and then I move on to my next conversation. So everyone be mindful of those conversations and don't get caught up in it. The book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, calls it the pain body. It will attach to that and get into a major argument. And the last thing I want to say real quick, I never got a chance to answer my own question earlier. If there's one thing I could snap my fingers and get rid of, it would be any agendas that are trying to divide us. Mm-hmm. Because that would open up the dialogue, which would diminish a lot of the ignorance, because now people are talking that would have normally been talking. They're collaborating, putting mm-hmm. businesses, companies together, creating jobs and opportunities. And you got to work. I know they say that's the Antichrist. And if the world ever came together as one, it would mean the devil. And I think that was put in the Bible to keep us from coming together, because I know so many people I've had biblical conversations with that just won't stand for the idea of everyone in the world being on the same page, because they just say that's the devil. And that's how you know the devil is here, when we're all on the same page. And I'm like, not if we're all loving each other and having fun and living good lives and living longer, getting rid of all the greasy, fatty foods because we all are good for us. You know, get rid of racism because it just doesn't make sense. We're all humans. If aliens came, all of a sudden we band together when something happens. When something bad happens, 9/11,
I was just thinking that.
All of a sudden we're united. Everybody got a flag in their front yard. All of a sudden, let's not wait for a tragedy. Let's not wait for a tragedy to happen.
Drop that shit so fast. Oh, I'm telling you what. Let's just get divided by what? You know what? Our great grandchildren are going to be laughing their asses off at our grandparents going, they believe in this thing called divide and racism. What the hell? You're so right. Because you know what? About the time the UFOs come, we are going to give 10 shits what color you are. You're on my side. Get over here. Let's go.
United we stand.
Hello.
Well,
and as soon as they leave.
The reality is at that point, we're probably all going to be the same color anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
That's also could be. What about the blood? Their whole green-red thing. I'm not sure.
Yeah. But to Neo's point, you talked about, okay, at what point do we just say somebody's wrong and just leave it at that? Even though it may piss us off, right? Somebody's wrong and you wait for the conversation to fizzle out and you walk away. That's why I talk about personal accountability so much. I talk about it in coaching conversations and on the podcast and everything else. It's about personal accountability because there's so much in this world that we have no control over, right? This is one of the ways that I turned my life around from being an asshole most of the time to being happy most of the time. Is because I started to realize that there's so much in this world that's out of my control. And as long as I focus on what I can control and just take the stuff that I can't, and just try to find peace with it, it's amazing how important that personal accountability factor is. And then we go right to what Debbie said earlier, be the change that you want to see in the world. Or what Walt was saying in that, you know what, if I just work on me, that's my part of making the world a better place, right? Personal accountability is not focusing on those things that we have no control over. Personal accountability is focusing on how we react to those things that we have no control over, and having that perfect reaction. That's where it's really at. That's what makes the difference.
I was talking about reactions.
It's just going to happen.
Well,
point blank, shit's going to happen. Is how you react to it.
I love that. I love that. When I hear the word accountability, what I transfer that is this: I said yes from the get. Period.
Yeah.
I said yes, and that is what sometimes hits me with accountability is that it's the yes factor. You said yes, but I'm echoing somewhere.
Yeah, we're getting an echo somewhere.
As soon as you tap the mic, you echo for like the next 5 minutes.
What the hell? I tapped the mic. You know why? Because that needs to be 10 of me.
I don't know if we could handle that. We can handle one of you. 10 of you? I'm not sure.
Okay. Look, I love that. But accountability is besides curiosity, accountability is my other favorite word in this world. And I feel it would be an enormously wonderful thing if the world could if we could each take some serious accountability for our own choices in life.
That's what it's all about. Yeah, that's really what it's all about is taking account for our own actions, taking account, nobody else is to account for my mindset. Nobody else is to account for what I did today. The only person that's responsible for the decisions that I made today is me. And I can choose to be happy. I can choose to be miserable. But the thing about it is happiness and misery are both contagious. So if I choose to be miserable, then I have a better than average chance of making everybody else around me miserable. So the reality is if I want to be around happy people, I damn sure better do my best to be happy.
I want to say this about the whole accountability part, because you guys know I spend a lot of my time trying to come up with ways to convince people that thoughts become things, like wearing the shirt everywhere I go, and handing out wristbands. But as far as accountability, the only real way you could force someone to start being accountability for their shit is for them to start seeing it around them.
That's the only way. That's it.
When they start seeing everybody else owning their own shit, they start feeling bad. Like, man, I'm the only fraud walking around. So we need to do that. Raise that up and be that example for everybody.
The only fraud walking around.
You mentioned earlier, the toxicity of the internet, and certainly there's plenty of toxicity on the internet. But I'll tell you what, the internet is relatively young. I mean, yeah, it's been around now for about 30 years, but in terms of, the larger scheme of things, it's still pretty young. And for the first time in the history of mankind, we find all of ourselves within the echo chamber known as the internet. Mm-hmm. And now we're hearing it all. I mean, all this stuff existed prior to the internet. We just didn't hear it. It wasn't part of it. We had our own little locale, our own little communities and so forth. And that was it. That's all we ever knew. Now we're seeing all this stuff. And what usually happens whenever a new community, especially a larger community, gets created, is that the community starts off fighting themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And being all the nasty, asshole-ish type people they can be. But what happens over time is that people start seeing the other examples, the ones like you were talking about, Neo. Like, well, I'm the only one who's acting like the jerk around here. Maybe I should be changing. They start seeing different ways of thinking, different ways of being, different ways of acting. And I think that's what's happening globally on the net. Right now, it's the Wild West. Right now, it's the nasty period where everybody's like, oh my God, everything is out there. Like, I'm getting hit with all this information, blah, 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 blah. But over time, as we adapt to it and we get used to it and we figure out how we're going to survive and thrive within it, or perhaps crash and burn within it, over time, the other communication channels start to come out. The ones where we start paying attention to alternative ways of thinking, different ways of looking, different ways of understanding, different ways of meeting people, different ways of greeting people, and so on and so forth. So talking about your grandchildren, Debbie, I bet you not only would they be wondering about the whole racist thing, but they're going to be thinking about the internet completely differently. They're going to be thinking about that web space, that electronic online virtual space completely differently, because their experience is going to be very different from the one that we're having today. I keep that in mind. I think about that a lot because, for one thing, that gives me a lot of hope. For another thing, it tells me this is all, we may be starting right now in the shit pile, but the shit pile is turning into fertilizer.
It's all the 100. Oops.
No, go ahead, because I want to bring up what Jeffrey said after you say that.
I was just going to talk about the 100th monkey. This is all the 100th monkey effect. Period.
Jeffrey said something that I haven't thought about in forever, and it's so detrimental. It's so important. Everyone I've ever said this to, chill, you're allowed to be happy. They give me that look. I know and that's it. I know I'm allowed to be happy. Well, why am I blocking myself? And I could picture my oldest son is like the biggest example right now. When I say this to him, he's like, he has to make that shift in his mind. Like, wow, I am blocking myself for being happy for more than a couple minutes because I'm moving on to the next text message, which is hostile, or the next email. And so saying this to people it might sound stupid to say, like, listen, you're allowed to allow yourself to be happy. It might sound stupid, but it is impactful. Mm-hmm. It really is. Even when I say it to myself.
Yeah, no, that's an incredible way to put it for sure.
Y'all need to just read the 100th Monkey.
You keep on talking about this 100th Monkey thing. I don't know what that is.
So 100th Monkey, seriously, when we're done, you should check this out. You're going to love, I know you will love this. So there were these studies done in Hiroshima and some other islands of these monkeys, and they were given yams. The scientists started noticing that the baby monkeys were washing the yams. And over years, they noticed that the little ones were teaching the next ones and the next ones and the next ones. And it's just one generation after another of monkeys learning how to wash their yams. Suddenly they noticed that all the monkeys are washing their yams now. They don't like dirty freaking yams. Okay. And
like you struggle to find that.
Well, it's like sitting here just like imagining, because like, it always cracks me up. But the thing is that the reason that it was so fascinating is that the scientists that are doing these same experiments hundreds and thousands of miles away, they're experiencing the same thing. All of a sudden, it's just a social norm that everybody is washing their yams because they don't like frickin' dirty yams. Okay. But it's the idea that social change 2.0, if we're each doing that, and then we're each helping our neighbor, we're each helping our mother, our father, and generations, my granddaughter who just turned 10 is going to be so much more advanced. They're born smarter. I don't even know what else to say. They're born awake. They don't have any time for or tolerance for our bullshit. These are truly our 100th, but to be the 100th monkey is to be the social change 2.0, to be the one. You don't know that you're the only one that knows how to wash the yam, and you're the only one that can show us. So if you're being that 100th monkey, you're being the social change. You could be social change 2.0. You could be the tipping point. The tipping point. Yes.
That's where he puts it right in there. I love it.
You could be the tipping point. And
so the 100th monkey was the first one to wash the yams?
No, the 100th monkey is about, we don't know if it took 101 monkeys or if it took 105 or it took 99. So we call it the 100th monkey, the tipping point. We don't know who the tipping point is. I could be the tipping point. Wilk over here could be the tipping point. Neo, well, all of us could be the tipping point. So if you are being that social change too, if you're being that you want to see changed, it's very safe to consider that you just might see a social change in your lifetime if enough people are doing it. But it just happens. We teach each other. When we're around each other, we pick up each other's habits. Can you think of that? Have you ever done something and you go, oh my God, I just did that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, social change 2.0. Be aware of what you're doing and make these decisions. In that, you don't know that you're not the tipping point. You just don't. So why not just be that you want? Be that,
So Wilk, I got to ask you.
So what you're saying then, if I understand this correctly, is the tipping point. If enough people start doing it, eventually it gets to a point where that is the natural thing. Instead of the toxicity, instead of the everything, now all of a sudden, if more people or more individuals are trying to be the change that they want to see in the world, eventually that becomes the norm. The outsiders are all the ones that are being toxic. So yeah, no, I get it. That's good.
It's going to be that. Well, yeah, but you're part of that, you see, because by you stepping forward and doing deratethehate.com, by you stepping out and doing this, you are being the 100th monkey. Period.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
Shout out to Facebook user. I'm with you on that. Yeah, I'm with you.
Neo positivity is the change.
That's why I'm here, baby. That's why I'm here. I have one purpose on this life.
So look, I got to ask you something here. Because obviously this has been the wide-ranging conversation that was promised to you. And I'm always curious from the perspective of the person who's the guest on the show, what it's like. So you came in, you have your message. Your message is a wonderful message. You're sharing your message. I'm wondering what it's like from your perspective to experience I don't want to say feedback, the resonance that you're getting here.
You know what? It's an incredible conversation. I mean, there's definitely, as I look around I'll just say this, as I look around the table here, I see three very different people that probably come from very different backgrounds, but we're having a great conversation. We've had some laughs. We've talked about everything from serious to funny to completely off the wall. Not to pick on you, Debbie, but no, that was a joke.
I received that. But holy!
I'm not gonna say no names, but
no. So, but the awesome thing about this is this is what the world needs, right? This kind of thing is what the world needs, because you mentioned the word echo chamber, Walt. A lot of times people fall into these little echo chambers, right? They hang around with people that are like them, or just do nothing but just self resonate, right? They just hang around with people that do nothing but agree with them, or that are thinking just like they are. They don't have those curious conversations. They don't talk to anybody that doesn't look like them, or doesn't sound like them, or doesn't think like them. It's these kind of conversations that make the world a better place. So when I think about the resonance, when I think about the things that we've done here, when I think about the different conversations and the different things that I do with the group Braver Angels, it's the conversations with those that you don't always agree with or don't know that help to make us all better people. And that's this is incredible.
I agree with you. I've often said here on the show, I love the perspectives that I get by doing this show. I've had so many hundreds of perspectives come through, and every one of them makes me better, including the ones, especially the ones that I disagree with. I love those even more. Right? I've gotten so much out of them. Yeah, it's just amazing.
That's why
it's so much fun, and I love spending time with people like this.
That's why live streaming is so much better to me than speeches and videos, because we pulling out of the heart.
Oh, yeah.
We're pulling out fresh information and kind of birthing new ideas, as opposed to something we've been saying in every episode for the past 2 years. So I really love the live stream aspect of all of it. I love live streams.
I do too. We have 7.6 billion people in this world, give or take a few, since COVID. Excuse me. Is it too soon? Sorry. That's good. Just thought I'd do. Yeah, I did that. Because we got to lighten it up. But I mean, really, we need as many people out there that are willing to step forward with their voice and do this and be the change and be the 100th monkey and seriously read it. Because if your interpretation of reading it will be a lot better than my spewing it out last minute. But for real, like, there are some really key things that you brought up today. And Wilk, I certainly appreciate you bringing it to the forefront. And as always, I mean, we've got Neo and Walt here just like through, and yeah, I don't push envelopes. I rip the shit. I just fuck that.
Just blow it up.
Blow that shit up, because life's too short not to. We're here to enjoy this life.
That's right.
And the more we can love on each other and truly connect through our heart space and really have conversations, dude, like, that's my thing. I talk a lot, but I also love to communicate. It's the one thing we all get to do with each other in one way or another. So thank you for bringing forward so much awesomeness today.
Neo and I are sitting here with smiles on our faces because we've been missing the Debbie G vibe for the last couple of months. Well, she's been away. She actually had a serious surgery she went through, and she's only been back for a couple of weeks now.
Okay.
And we're just like loving having the Debbie G.
I thought it was just me that brought it out.
No. Well, it does. That's you too. You deserve credit for that as well. Absolutely. But there is nothing like a Debbie G inherited show. I mean, just the energy just goes off the scale. You know, electronics happen, electronics fail, all kinds of stuff happens because of the Debbie G effect.
Spirituality got wild, baby.
I was going to say that, you know, in my ending, I always say thank you to all the military and first responders for your service. And I know we did a show yesterday, but I think today is official hashtag Debbie's back, baby. Like, Debbie's back. We got the old Debbie energy. It's back, y'all. It's back.
No doubt about it. And Wilk, thank you so much for what you're doing as well. Now, Derate the Hate, that's the name of the podcast. I believe it can be found anywhere that a podcast is done. I imagine probably the best place to start is deratethehate.com. Is that also the best way to reach you?
Yeah, deratethehate.com, wilksworld.com. You can find me there. That's the derate-the-hate.com is dedicated to the podcast. That's where you're going to find the most content. And it's all about bettering the world one attitude at a time. So come check me out, and I'm an open book. So if you got any questions, hit me up.
Well, I got to give you what I love to give to all of our guests, because our guests are all givers, and you're definitely a giver. And the givers go out and they do their podcasts, they join other podcasts, they write, they put out books, they do all kinds of stuff to just keep reaching out and helping the world. And you're one of those people who do that. But the thing is, there are like millions of people who we never meet, we never see, whatever, who, we don't hear them reading our message or hearing our voice or whatever, but we help them in ways that we never find out about. We experience only vicariously, perhaps an occasional email or whatever, that, there's a listener who really grabbed something that I said. Most of the time we don't get that. So I like to make it a point to say, on behalf of those you'll never meet and you'll never see, who you've helped over the years, thank you for what you've been doing. And thank you for what you're continuing to do, because it's so important.
It means a lot. Thanks.
Thank you, Wilk.
And thank you guys as well, Neo and Debbie. Fridays are back. Fridays are definitely back.
Yeah, we're back.
Yeah, good stuff. I love it. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.